Busy day here on HQ. Busy day for the coaching carousel in college football. Multiple Power 4 programs making hires. The big one, Lane Kiffin to LSU is now official. With it, Pete Golding takes over at Ole Miss. Jon Sumrall to Florida, and both Arkansas and Auburn filling their positions as well. So we are going to do a thankless task and give out grades for these head coaching hires. Damien Harris here in studio, Brad Crawford and Richard Johnson joining us remotely. Guys, let's start with Lane Kiffin. You have the honors. What's your grade for Kiffin to LSU?
I'm going to give this a B. B+. Because when you look at where LSU has struggled, it's always been offensively. It's been quarterback play. This year in particular, it's been a lack of the running game. Receivers haven't come through for their quarterbacks. What do you need to inject into your offense if you're LSU? It's Lane Kiffin. Now, the reason why I give it a B+ instead of an A is because Lane Kiffin always comes with a price. And I'm not talking about financially. I'm thinking ahead of if there does happen to be a breakup between Lane Kiffin and LSU at some point, what is that going to leave LSU with? Are they going to be in the same position that Ole Miss is in right now? Which, I know Ole Miss isn't in a bad spot considering they've won 11 games. They're going to the college football playoffs. But just the theatrics and everything that comes with it and surrounds your program, is it going to be worth it in the long run? So I give this a B.
Brad, what grade?
Yeah, I'm going to give LSU an A for this. I'm sure the Tigers feel like they won the coaching sweepstakes this cycle. I would give that title to Virginia Tech and James Franklin, by the way. But I'm going to give this higher an A because it's a huge investment. They fired Brian Kelly, owe him $54 million. They're going to have to pay $90 million to Lane Kiffin and a new staff over the course of this contract. Listen, who knows if it's going to work out down the road, but the optics here are pretty superb when you consider that Lane Kiffin has 4 11-win seasons at LSU now, just led this program to its first playoff appearance in program history, and now with better resources, a more fertile recruiting area, probably better talent overall, Lane Kiffin is going to be expected to do the same thing at LSU in shorter order. But I like this hire for LSU. They went and got their guy, and by the way, they also stepped in front of Florida for this hire too, so I'll give it an A.
Brad, I'm going to give it a B for a couple of the same reasons that Damien did. Mainly, we don't know. The clock is ticking on if this ends in a divorce and if that divorce ends up being messy, because it has been messy at multiple stops for Lane Kiffin. But I also think there's going to have to be a revamp of recruiting strategy here, and there may be a push-pull between Lane Kiffin's vision and LSU's vision. Obviously, this year's roster at LSU, pretty portal-heavy, didn't really work. Lane Kiffin is a portal king, obviously. But at LSU, you got to defend home turf in the high school ranks. And the people that I talk to who have assessed Lane Kiffin's recruiting prowess say he's not the best high school recruiter in the SEC or in this echelon of college football, the echelon that he's in. Now, can he be a better high school football recruiter at a place like LSU that seemingly recruits itself? I think it remains to be seen.
And Ole Miss wasting no time hiring Pete Golding as not just their interim, but their permanent head coach. So, RJ, what grade do you give the hire?
I'll give Pete Golding an A simply because this is about the vibes. The vibes have been so bad and so toxic in there for, what are we talking about, a month? And this is the second time Lane Kiffin has pulled this, by the way. He did it a few years ago with Auburn. I think at the end of the day, Ole Miss needs somebody who wants to be there. They need somebody, I should say, who wants this job. And Pete Golding, given the fact that he's going to stay in this job and not go to LSU, I think wants this job. I don't know how good Pete Golding will be in this job. I think it's going to be, it remains to be seen, just because we don't really know the makeup of Ole Miss's roster, because you would expect that Lane Kiffin is going to come calling for quite a bit of their players. But because they have somebody here who wants to be there, I think it's a great move for the vibes at Ole Miss.
Yeah, for me, it's 2 grades here for Pete Golding. Short term, I give it a B+. Like I've said, I think Ole Miss made this hire quickly and did it to preclude the playoff committee from torching this seed and potentially going on the road in the first round. But long term, I'm going to say incomplete. And I think that's fair because we don't know if Pete Golding, has the chops to lead a program. Obviously, Keith Carter, Rebels AD, thinks he is because they made this hire so fast after Lane Kiffin left the Rebels. But I think it's very important for Pete Golding to surround himself by a bunch of staffers who are experts on game day, because when Ole Miss won big under Lane Kiffin, he called all the shots. and he was very good on third down and even fourth down situations. So Pete Golding needs to make sure he surrounds himself with a bunch of smart guys on the sideline.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. I'm going to go with B-. I love what RJ said about they got a guy that wants to be there. Like there's value in that. We've lost sight that there's value in having people in places that actually want to be there. Their mind's not one place while they're trying to coach another. So they got their guy that wants to be there. My only concern with Pete Golding, although I was very complimentary of him earlier, is just he's such a defensive-minded guy. And I love Ole Miss. I love that they've revamped this defense, but the defense hasn't gotten Ole Miss to where they are. It's been Lane Kiffin. It's been the offense. So I agree with Brad. Pete has to do an incredible job of surrounding himself with the right people that can help him navigate this because, you know, he's in a position where he has to coach the entire team, but he's the defensive coordinator. His mind is going to be focused primarily on the defensive side of the ball. So he can improve this grade to an A as long as he surrounds himself with the right minds and somebody that's familiar with the players, the structure, the game plan, just the style of play that they want to do on offense.
And while all this chaos was going on, Florida said, we found our guy. We're going to go ahead and hire him. So the Gators hiring Jon Sumrall as their next head coach. Brad, what grade would you give that hire?
Satisfactory? Is that fair? Maybe a C+. And I say this because I don't think Jon Sumrall was Florida's number one choice. Obviously, that was Lane Kiffin, and it didn't work out for the Gators. I don't think it was Florida's number two choice. Perhaps that was Eli Drinkwitz, who re-signed with Missouri on a long-term deal. And then they went the G5 route, which is where Florida went last time with Billy Napier. And after 3.5 seasons, that was over quickly in Gainesville. So while Jon Sumrall and Billy Napier are obviously different-minded coaches, they both kind of came from the same G5 tree. And I think Jon Sumrall, he's already said in his opening statements for Florida in that release this afternoon that he's going to hire an offensive guy that thinks firepower first. Well, we didn't see that at all much at Tulane outside of a few 300-yard games from Darian Menza, who's now at Duke, the quarterback. So I think Jon Sumrall, just like Pete Golding at Ole Miss, he needs to find and put together an offensive staff that's going to produce firepower and big plays at Florida. Because under Billy Napier and the past couple coaching staffs, we haven't seen the explosive plays indicative of what Florida football used to be in its heyday.
Yeah, look, if you ask Florida fans, just because Jon Sumrall is literally anybody not named Lane Kiffin, they're going to give this hire an F. But at the end of the day, you got to see what he's going to do in the job. There's going to be a new setup in Gainesville with Jon Sumrall. It's going to be similar to kind of what Oklahoma may have, or something like Cal and Stanford have, with an empowered GM and Dave Caldwell, our Jonathan Jones reports, and Jon Sumrall as head coach. That's a little bit different than the head coach GM setup that Florida currently had with Nick Polk and Billy Napier. So I think that creates a different just kind of ecosystem around this job. It's not all going to be on the head coach's shoulders to scout, develop, negotiate contracts, and do all the rev share needs that have to happen in the current day and age in college football. Jon Sumrall, quite frankly, is going to be allowed to be, I think, a little bit more of a ball coach here, similar to an NFL-style model. I think because of that, this is an A because it's a new beginning for Florida and a new look on a big job, similar to what Oklahoma did with Jim Nagy and Brent Venables.
I'm going to give this a D. And I'll give you 3 reasons why. I love Jon Sumrall. I think he's a phenomenal coach. I think he's earned the right to get this job. But we've already talked about it. Number one, the staff didn't want him. I shouldn't say they didn't want him, but that wasn't their primary guy. That wasn't their target. Like, they feel like they missed on their target. Number one. Number two, we've said that the fans are not going to be happy about this. Anybody other than Lane Kiffin would not be satisfactory to the University of Florida fans. And number 3, and I want to be mindful when I say this, but I also want to be truthful and transparent. There are probably going to be a lot of players in this locker room that are going to look at it and say, this is a G5 coach that has never coached in the SEC before. He's never coached players with my type of talent, my caliber of what production, trying to get me to where I want to go in the NFL. He hasn't done that yet. So what can that lead to? Certain guys might hit the portal because they think he doesn't have the right experience. It could lead to some guys just not getting comfortable with Sumrall as their head coach. And if you do that, if he doesn't come in and immediately win the locker room over, which I'm not sure if he will immediately, that's going to be a big problem as well. When you don't appease the hiring staff, the fans, or the players, you're going to be in a pretty bad spot. But again, I do want to emphasize Jon Sumrall, phenomenal football coach. He deserves to be the head coach at Florida, and I think he will have success.
Elsewhere in the American to SEC coaching pipeline, we've got Alex Golesh to Auburn. Grade that higher, Damien.
I hate to say what I'm going to say, but I would give it an A.
Ooh.
I would give it an A. I think that Auburn, in recent memory, has been a good quarterback away from winning some of those Iron Bowls, potentially competing, trying to get their way to an SEC championship or get to a college football playoffs. And then I look at USF and what he's done with his quarterback there, it's been phenomenal. So I think he's going to be able to find a guy, mold him the way that he did his quarterback at USF, and turn this Auburn Tigers team into an offensive powerhouse, really. I think that he has that type of potential as a head coach if he finds his guy.
I'm proud of Damien. That's personal growth, bro.
Thank you, RJ. Thank you.
I'm going to go with a B on Golesh. No, you know what? Revise. I'm going to go with an A on Golesh because I just remembered what I kept hearing about this Auburn job. And the thing that I kept hearing about this Auburn job for the last couple weeks is that DJ Durkin, the interim head coach and defensive coordinator, was not just a candidate to remain as the defensive coordinator, but he was a candidate to be the permanent head coach. And quite frankly, once Auburn tied that game up last night against Alabama, I thought he was going to become the permanent head coach. And I have some questions about DJ Durkin, both on and off the field as a head coach, quite frankly, because of his past and what happened at Maryland with the death of Jordan McNair that happened under his watch, meaning his coaching regime in his program at the time at Maryland, and also on the field, quite frankly, because I like DJ Durkin's defense, but I don't know how he would be able to build a full program and develop the offense, as Damien said, they had to have. So perhaps DJ Durkin will be staying on this staff under Alex Golesh. I don't think that's been determined just yet. But Golesh kind of pulling a rabbit out of the hat for Auburn and getting Golesh brings you a high-energy guy, a guy who knows how to score points, as Damien said. And so I will take this grade as an A on my end.
Yeah, it looks like Alex Golesh gets a dozen donuts from us because straight A's for all of the hire. This is my favorite hire the SEC has made this cycle, believe it or not. And I know Auburn has made some failures recent years with Brian Harsin lasting 2.5 seasons and then Hugh Freeze getting fired earlier this fall. But look, Auburn's pretty close to being a annual top 25 program, maybe even top 20. They lost 5 games this season, the Tigers did, by a touchdown or less against ranked competition. And that was with 0 offense to speak of after hiring a coach in Hugh Freeze, who we thought was an offensive guru. Well, Alex Golesh is that. He studied under Josh Heupel. His offenses at USF have put up explosive firepower numbers these last few years, and I'm sure he's going to bring some of those most talented players he has on that Bulls roster with him on the plane. So I like this hire sort of like when Lane Kiffin was hired at Ole Miss. It feels a lot like a guy who's going to be able to not only recruit the high school ranks now with better resources at an SEC job, but he can also tap the portal and get some guys to fill some holes and score a lot of points there at Jordan-Hare.
But wait, there's more. SEC didn't just hire 1 American head coach, not 2, but 3. We've got Ryan Silverfield from Memphis headed to Arkansas. RJ, grade the hire.
Oh, this is another one where I think Arkansas fans would tell you it's an F. There was a small scale little protest outside of the stadium today with fans who are not happy. It seemed like Arkansas had Alex Golesh in the bag, quite frankly. This is one that I'm going to give a C just because Silverfield, in my estimation, has not been able to get it done with, frankly, the best resources of any team in the G5, at least a top 3 resource allocation of any team in the G5. They just continue to clunk in November year after year after year under Ryan Silverfield. So I'm going to give this one a C.
Yeah, Silverfield's lost a lot of games, Richard, at Memphis. Maybe he shouldn't lose based on talent discrepancy that he has with that Tigers roster. I know Arkansas fans, I heard a podcast earlier today, they are just hating on this hire and they want Hunter Yurachek fired as AD. But I think they should get behind Ryan Silverfield because anything's better than finishing 0-8 here in the SEC like the Razorbacks did this season. So you're going to see an offense that scores more points, I think, under Ryan Silverfield. But who he hires on the defensive side of the football will determine if Arkansas is above a 500 level program over the next few years. They always, the Hogs that is, play one of the SEC's toughest schedules. It's not going to get any easier with Texas and OU on the schedule just about annually over the next 3 or 4 years. So Arkansas probably doesn't win this coaching carousel from the outside looking in this afternoon, but moving on from Sam Pittman and hiring somebody new, I think it's time for Hogs fans to get on this bandwagon and really trust that Ryan Silverfield can get this team back to a bowl game.
I'm going to give this a D because of everything that Brad and RJ just said, but I will agree and say that this is a better head coach. This is a better situation than what they had with Sam Pittman. Like, you're already a better football team with Silverfield than you were with Pittman, but we can't understate the lack of enthusiasm from the fan base, not to mention we're sitting here talking about how Silverfield couldn't get it done in the G5, and Brad's talking about Arkansas is going to have one of the toughest SEC schedules year in and year out, not to mention they're at the bottom of the barrel of the SEC. So it wasn't easy before for Silverfield. It's definitely not going to get any easier, but again, it's an upgrade from Sam Hartman, so I'll give it a D.
All right, so Michigan State trying to rival Ole Miss by having the fastest coaching search as they lock in Pat Fitzgerald for their next head coaching position. Damien, grade the hire.
I'm going to give this a C. I'm right in the middle on this. I'm right in the middle. I mean, I think that Michigan State is a program where it's similar to Arkansas. You just need to get better. And I think that this is an improvement from their previous head coach. I think that this guy, he's won a lot of games at Northwestern. So at least you've got somebody that knows how to win when it looks like Michigan State has known how to lose for so long. So that automatically puts you in a better position. I mean, hopefully it works out for them. And the C is, a pretty fair grade.
I also am going to go with a C here because I think this is going to go one of two ways. Pat Fitzgerald was not good in the job in the last couple years at Northwestern, but I have questions about the backing that was given to him, mainly as how Northwestern tried to adjust to the NIL era. Were they ready to do that? Did he have any of the resources that he needed to compete at Northwestern? Was he trying to do more with less? If Michigan State is going to make this swing and pay $30-odd million to get Jonathan Smith out of the job, I would imagine they're going to back Pat Fitzgerald pretty strongly. So if he's going to have NIL resources and he's going to have resources to compete in the Big Ten, maybe we'll see how this goes.
But I have a question about Pat Fitzgerald's leadership at Michigan State. I mean, they just fired a guy after 2 seasons. If I'm Pat Fitzgerald taking this job, I'm wondering, man, if I don't get to 6 wins by year 2, are they going to give me the axe too? So obviously he's going to get a financial windfall if that were to happen. Ultimately, I would give this grade a B. I think Pat Fitzgerald is an upgrade over Jonathan Smith because he has won over 100 games before at a Big Ten program, and he did it with less resources at Northwestern. And obviously this is going to be a philosophical and schematic change in East Lansing, maybe closer to what we saw under Mark D'Antonio with the run game, really good offensive line play, kind of a Wisconsin-style ball versus what we saw the last couple of years under Jonathan Smith, pass heavy.
All right. Hope somebody is recording this, and we'll check back in maybe 3-4 years. Damien Harris, Brad Crawford, RJ, appreciate you giving out some grades for the latest coaches hired today in college football. Been very busy in the SEC in particular. Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Ole Miss, LSU all locking up their head coaches, and Michigan State coming in with a last-minute coaching change. Looks like they'll be hiring Pat Fitzgerald, the former Northwestern head coach, to be the new leader of the Spartans.